because this means this is something above and beyond what you're required to grow, that you're investing your own money into and going out and getting that cool stuff. But I want to kind of give you a little warning. Make sure that your transplants are the last thing to go in today. You want to do your seeds first. And the reason for that is the last thing you do in your garden today, the very last thing you do in your garden is water. And so if you plant your transplants and then start in on your seeds, the water that's in the root ball of your transplant is being pulled out by the soil. Clay soil is really good at just removing water from real delicate root balls. And so before you have a chance to water, your transplants can wilt. And that's something you just don't need. So let's try to get our seeds in first and do those first, get those out of the way, keeping our transplants in their nice little containers. If your transplants are looking a little wilty, give them a little water now. Let them sit there in their containers in the water so they don't wilt. But make that be the last thing we put in, okay? So what I want to do is show you briefly about leveling a garden plot. This has been tilled, so everything's really fluffy. And you can see that if I walk around here, do you guys see how my feet leave pretty big marks? And if we were to just let that go and then plant our seeds in water, every one of those would be a little catch basin for water. So we want to make sure we're alleviating that. So what I'm doing with this rake is I'm taking real slow, long strokes with this rake handle. And what I'm doing is I'm hardly letting the weight of the rake sink in there. I'm just trying to push and pull to create an even, level bed. Now what we do sometimes is we go around the edge with the corner of the rake, because whenever the rototiller pops up out of there, it pulls the blades up, and so there's a little kind of a no man's land, like a skateboard ramp right here. Do you guys see that? So if you leave that in, then when you water, all that water will run right to your first row. It can create a little bog. So I usually take the corner of my rake and go all the way around the edge like this and dig in the corners and pull it away. And that way when we water, it doesn't spill onto the sidewalks. And then you can just pull this excess with the back of the rake. Okay, so that gives us a starting point. And remember, it's these getting low, bending your knees, letting the rake kind of float over the top. You can see a couple carrots from last semester's garden that didn't get pulled up. And again, if this seems to be troublesome for you, in other words, seems like it keeps wanting to dig, flip it over. For some of you, that works even better. It all depends upon what your, see, I'm seeing high spots right here. How are we doing, you guys? Are we getting any better at all? A little bit? Now, one thing I have to say is that as you guys rake, when we rototill, if there's moisture in the soil, then you'll get these little kind of mini dirt clods, these little nuggets. And then some of you will notice that you have more than others. So when you start pulling this rake around, it starts gathering those up. Your inclination would be to want to throw those things away because they're bothering you. They're little dirt clods, they're gathering up, and sometimes we become nugget obsessed when we're raking our gardens. So if that's the case, and you start collecting a bunch, I don't have too many, but some of you, I'm looking over in your garden plots, might have a few more. Rake them into a little pile and then chop them up with your rake and then push them back out into the bed. Okay, so How long does it take to make a 1 inch of topsoil, you guys? Anybody know? You don't know? 500 years. So if you throw anything away, it should not be soil. That's the last thing we need to be throwing away. So, you know, when you get the nuggets in your garden, rake them into a pile, chop them up, push them back out into the landscape. Think of them as like sugar cubes. When you drop a sugar cube into a glass of tea, what happens? It dissolves. The first few times you guys water, those nuggets are going to go away. They've been generated by the process of rototilling. So don't let them bother you too much, okay? So let me get over here because this is where my first row is going to go. I'm seeing a lot of kind of mounding over there. Okay, I could be doing a little better than this, but I want to save us a little time. So you guys have more time. So what's going on now is that we want to tread our gardens to pack down the fluffy soil. So what we usually do is use the back of the rake for this. Now some people actually just tread the soil by going like this with their feet, moving back and forth. That'll pack it down pretty well. It's whatever you guys decide seems to work the best. The idea is when you're finished treading the soil with either the back of a rake or your shoes, you're not making footprints anymore. It's all going to hold up pretty well. Okay. Lori, I bet these guys are just ready to go. They're ready to go. So let's get a row in. Let's get our steaks. This. Yeah, we need some carrots. So you guys that did a plan are probably familiar with spacing. How far between 2 rows of carrots? You guys know? Anybody know? 14 inches. Okay, so knowing that, how far from the edge of a sidewalk tree we'd be going? 7 inches, okay? So if I want to go 7 inches, I take my stake, I put it in just past the 1 inch mark. Now remember with this, basically you can adjust the height by repositioning the string on the stake. So you can slide the string up and down on the stake. I just pulled my microphone out. That must make quite a noise. Okay, let's go to the other side. Come over here. Twist it tight. There you go. Okay, so what I would do on this one is actually pull the string up and let it sit a little higher on the stake. There you go, like that, perfect. So we can always see a low spot. Okay, so we're gonna plant carrots. Do we have carrots? Beautiful. How deep do carrots go? Does anybody have a seed packet? They go a 1/2 inch, don't they? Okay. So, he's playing with me. Okay, so this is a drill, and the idea is that this drill is going to be a 1/2 inch deep. So I'm running my finger, and if some of you are opposed to touching soil, you can use the back of your, like this. You can run this along, see? Does the same thing. So you guys will find whatever makes you feel most comfortable. I always think it's a good idea to touch soil so you feel like you're a little more connected to the process. So this drill is about a 1/2 inch deep. You guys agree with me? Okay. So from the top of the soil level to the bottom of the drill should be about a 1/2 inch. Now I think your radishes are 1/4 of an inch, and I think your lettuce, the most dangerous thing with lettuce, it's 1/8 of an inch. So the biggest problem with planting lettuce from seed, what do you guys think it would be? Planting it too deep. So be really careful with that. Take a little time with the lettuce. A lot of the community gardeners out here think that I'm cruel for asking students to grow lettuce from seed, because most of them grow it from transplant, because it's really hard to do it from seed. The thinking with Lori and I is that you can grow it from seed, you can do anything, right? So that's the idea. Now, as far as where we go from here, this is where we can get into some danger. How many carrots do you think we would have in a 10-foot row ultimately? A ton. I have a picture on my website that has a girl that has 1 row of carrots, and it's this gigantic bundle. We counted about 250. So